There are levels of spirituality that are very difficult to find information about in our culture. These are some of the secrets that have been guarded by Tibetan monks for thousands of years, have been guarded by certain groups in India for thousands of years, and it was information that was only allowed for certain groups of people. It was not given to the mainstream populations, and this was not fair, because the information was meant for all of us. So tonight we're going to get into, move into spirituality and greater spirituality through the simple common ground of our aliveness. And what it means to be alive. Where does that aliveness come from? This is not one of those lectures, God made us, so our aliveness comes from God. Oh, yes, God did make us, but we're not going to go in that direction alone. We're going to explore what it means. What is our consciousness? Where did it come from? How does it get into our body? What is the relationship between our body and our consciousness? Because when you begin to ask these questions, you start to find the area where answers lie, answers that give you a power to begin embracing your spirituality in ways that haven't been available here for thousands and thousands of years. Now, when I talk about techniques, for those of you who have been to my workshops, you know some of what I do. For those who haven't, you could call them meditation, but that would be describing them in a way that would put them in a category with other things that they're very different from. It's using your mind to direct energy in the body. They're called bioregenesis techniques, and the purpose of them is to begin waking things up in your body that have to do with the spiritual integration process. It's not just taking your mind on meditation journeys. There are ways of using the mind, because the mind is a generator of scalar wave patterns, which are wave forms, electromagnetic wave forms, that interact with certain parts of the body and the DNA. These are the things that spirituality is about. These are the types of information that have been known by the masters for thousands of years, but have not been shared with the public, because there has been an information repression campaign that's been going on in our world for many thousands of years. So when I do meditations, when I take you on little journeys, I'm trying to get you to where you can exercise some of the things that belong to you that you might not realize you had. And once you realize you have them, you can take them home and play with them and begin expanding. Because if there's anything that's going to help grab that aliveness in you, it's not just talking about things that can make you find the aliveness. It's walking it through some of them. Getting your body and your mind used to moving in ways that it might not be used to doing. That's how you start to feel the aliveness more. And when you start to feel it more, that's when your conscious mind kind of goes, ooh, that was a little different. There is another place that my mind can go, and I feel certain things in my body when that happens. This is how your expansion starts. The reason I teach spirituality isn't because I needed a job. I was an artist before I got doing this. Spirituality holds the key to our freedom. All of the things in our world that make us unhappy, that make us stressed out, that we look at our world and want to cry because things are going so bad in certain areas and maybe even in our own lives. I teach spirituality because it's a way to genuine empowerment. And I teach spirituality in a way that's very deep and very personal, that has to do with your relationship directly to Source, not with your relationship to a priest or a rabbi, not with your relationship to having to follow rules set down in books that have been manipulated for 2,000 years. Okay? You take what's good in the books, and the stuff that's really holding you back, let it go. Just let it bounce off. We teach a type of spirituality that honors all religions. It honors the good parts of them, the parts that are honestly teaching you to make a connection with Source through you. It's your birthright. You were born as a human being, and human beings were born as an angelic race. This is something that was edited out of our religious teachings. We were told that we were sinners. I'll tell you something, God didn't put those words in those books. The inspiring words that teach us to aim higher and never forget God and embrace that presence and love God. God gave us those words. But there were other words put in with the text that have to do with human beings who wanted to control other human beings. This is why I'm talking about aliveness and waking up and beginning to be part of the club called Sleepers Anonymous. A sleeper is a person who walks around believing everything they're told through the media, through what their parents were told as children. They believe there's nothing else, and they just follow rules that somebody else set. And because of that, they're very easy to control, direct, and manipulate. That is a sleeper. And sleepers don't realize the danger they're in this society, where there's lots of people who would like to control and manipulate you and take your energy. The antidote to being a sleeper is being awake. And there are ways to become awake if we can get out of our own way. Part of the ways to become awake are realizing we have an aliveness that moves through us, It's been with us since the day we were born, and it'll be with us even after our bodies are dead. Maybe our bodies won't even die, because if we learn how to tap into our aliveness, you can change what the DNA does, which means you can change the fact that we're told human beings have to die. They don't. They didn't used to. They've been dying real fast since about 25,500 BC. But before that time, lifespans were much, much longer, and some people were able to leave here, leave this planet to other places, taking their bodies with them. That is the angelic human heritage. This is what, you can go to churches, synagogues for the next 200 years, and as long as they're using just the old books, you're not going to learn this. I look at it this way. If all the religions had it, you know how they each say, oh, well, we've got the truth? The ones who have the truth aren't here anymore. They ascended. They got out of here. The fact that those people who are so dedicated and have followed just the books and they're afraid to look any further beyond or within for the presence of spirit, if they had the whole truth and nothing but the truth, they probably wouldn't be on the planet anymore. Because you're not supposed to be stuck here in your evolution from now until eternity, until you evaporate into space dust. That's not what humans are created for. So when I talk about aliveness, one of the things I want to address first is consciousness. Now that's something we all have. We're obviously conscious. But what is consciousness, and where does it come from? If we buy into exclusively what the scientific experts tell us, they tell us that consciousness, well, that's simply a byproduct of interactions of electrical circuitry in the biological brain. And then, of course, once the biological brain stops functioning, you don't have consciousness anymore, which means you're gone. This is what science is teaching you. These are the experts. Now, of course, there's the other conflicting experts, the spiritual ones that tell you, God made consciousness. God made you. And then they give you a set of terms that in order to use your consciousness and have your consciousness, there are certain things you have to do, or you will not be loved, you will not go to heaven, you will not be able to experience your consciousness in a joyful way. So we have two paradigms in our society that we've been raised with. Religion was the foundation of societies up until maybe 200 years ago, when science started to become the new God. Neither of them have the whole truth. What I like to share with people is the fact that you were born with more truth stored in your cells than you can find in any book in any library here. If you learn to tap into that truth, you will not need the books and libraries anymore, because you have your own living library right within your DNA template to get that information, to begin understanding where you came from, why you're here, what it means to be here, what you're a part of. You need to learn to open up the body and have it speak to you. Open up the mind and let the body speak. The consciousness is not a byproduct of any type of biological function. Biological function is a product of consciousness. It works the other way around. There are certain life force energies that exist in the universe, not just in humans, but the whole universe is fueled by energy. That energy is conscious energy. All energy is conscious energy. What that implies is not only are you conscious, but so is your little toe. So is your refrigerator in its own type of consciousness, because all of it is made out of frequencies of energy. When we bring that concept home and bring it into, okay, I'm a being, I have a body, I have a consciousness. Now what? It didn't come with a set of instructions. There's no like owner's manual to the human body these days. The owner's manual is in your cells. There is information there that can lead you and guide you. What I want to talk about tonight in our aliveness, in talking about aliveness and identifying more of what that means, are the creation currents, currents of energy that fuel this universe. They come from Source or God, or whichever you call. If you want to call your God Allah, if you want to call it Jehovah, it doesn't matter what you call that beingness, that one consciousness that we all came from. We all originally came from that one consciousness. But so did the basics of physics, how energy works in a manifest system. In the basics of physics, spirituality and science go hand in hand. There's no difference between the two. When you look at science, the way it's practiced out there, it is soulless. It has no understanding that the fact there is spirit, and spirit is eternal, and it lives on way beyond the manifestations of form. When you look at religion, it teaches you there's nothing scientific at all about spirituality. It's about putting your power on somebody else's words and making sure you pay whatever it is you have to pay to make whoever it is that's in control happy, so you can get through to wherever heaven is. Neither of those paradigms teach you about your aliveness or how to use it. Neither of those paradigms teach you to use your God-given gift. You were created, humans were created, as manifestations of the face of God. They were created as little pieces of God. God wanted to experience what it means to be manifest, and so created many forms, one of them human. If we begin to realize that there is not a huge separation, God's not out there someplace else in the universe flying around or sitting on a throne, and you're way down here in this lowly little world, you start to realize you have a living connection to God at all times. God isn't dead. God didn't write the Bible and then, take a hike to another universe. That presence will always be with us. If we did not have a Bible, or we didn't have a Quran, or we didn't have a Torah, any of the books were just teachings to get us to a place where we could start to recognize the fact that Spirit and God live within us. Those things, those spiritual things, God, Spirit, they live within us, but not as hypothetical, conceptual things that have no tangibility. We have a program, it's an audio program, it's called Tangible Structure of the Soul. Some of you have used it already. This begins to show you the beginnings of that tangible structure of your soul, because there is an energy structure that's part of your anatomy, part of your body, that holds your aliveness and your consciousness into form. If you can begin to understand, it's kind of like we're walking around with an anatomy, and it's as if we identified the fact that we had one leg and two arms. We're not going to get very far as long as we're dragging that other leg because we don't realize we have it. We have anatomy that's multidimensional. It's 15-dimensional. We have our chakra systems, our bioenergetic fields, our DNA template that spans 12 of the 15 dimensions. When we begin to understand the anatomy that we're dealing with as a human being, we get to have the opportunity to master that, which means we have the ability to master our spiritual integration process. We don't have to hand our power over to some angel because it tells us it knows more about becoming spiritual than we do. We've been tricked into believing those things. Because as long as we're putting our power out on something else, we will never be able to use the power because we're telling ourselves we don't have it. The power I'm speaking of is the power of consciousness, the power of multidimensional consciousness that exists within our bodies right now, and it's what's running your bodies. If you didn't have these intrinsic conscious energy systems, you would not be able to walk a body around. Your body wouldn't be alive, and your consciousness wouldn't be focused in it. When we're going to understand the structure of our multidimensional anatomy, the structure of our spiritual identity, there's a lot of parts to it.